On January 15th, I posted these pictures of these two different airplane designs, and the idea was that you were going to vote for the one that you wanted me to build in this video. And 341 people voted, and the winner by 74% is the Viking Wren, the biplane. It was the favorite of 74% of the voters, so that's what we're going to build today. Here I have the plans. It's on both sides, and this gives you an idea on how small this model airplane is going to be. And we're going to start now. I really liked a glider design, but it needed to be released from a bigger airplane, and the club is closed right now. And the other option was going to be flying it on a slope, but I don't have a closed slope right now, and the restrictions because of the pandemic won't allow me to go there. So I think the Viking Wren is the perfect option, and let's start building it. The first thing I did was to scan the plan and transfer it to AutoCAD, where I redraw some of the main parts so I can use my laser cutter to cut those main parts. I made sure to have all the pieces drawn in the correct scale. Here's my laser cutter, and here's the wood that I'm going to use. This laser cutter and engraver is very good for many projects, but as I figure out later, it's not very good for cutting balsa wood if you need very accurate measurements. And that's because this is the DIY version and is a very cheap laser cutter. Better machines will cost more, but it will give you more precision to cut the pieces in their correct sizes. Moreover, this kind of laser won't have the power to cut through thick wood, so it's going to be a problem when cutting on plywood. After all, this laser cutter wasn't that bad because at least it will mark the lines where I had to cut. Now let's compare the piece already cut from the wood with the actual plan. And as you can see, there is a mismatch of few millimeters, and that's because of the machine. I think it can be calibrated, but I'm too lazy to research and to do it. And here's the plywood. And even though I used the laser with several passes, it was still very hard to cut, but I had to do it with patience. And after some hard work, it paid off. Now it's time for the easy part, cutting all the ribs that are already halfway cut by the laser. For the wing's main spar, I will use 3mm thick plywood by 5mm tall that I will take from the leftovers of the Riser 100 build that I built in a previous video. To cut this plywood, I used a ruler and a knife and no laser. The main glue I'm gonna be using is the UHU HART, which is a very good glue for model making. And as you can see, I'm going to make my own plywood piece, because I didn't have more plywood of the characteristics stated in the plan to finish this part. Remember to change your blade if you are going to make some detail work. I still need to get some spars and leading and trailing edges, but I don't have the measurements indicated in the plan, so the idea is to cut this wood to the sizes shown in the plan. Because I don't have the machine to do these cuts, I'm going to cut it with my knife, and the cut is not gonna be perfect 100%, but it's going to be respectable. And I keep preparing all the parts for the assembly. And yet, I still need to cut one last part for the wings. And for that I'm going to use this 12mm thick balsa wood sheet. This is going to be the trailing edge of the top wing, where there is no ailerons. And now that I have all the parts of wood that I will need for the construction, it's time to start assembling the wings. The wings are supposed to have a small dihedral, but there is no indication on how to make that on the plan, except for the location of the reinforcement, so I'm going to figure out how to do it by myself. Let's take a look at the fuselage and the formers. The fuselage is made out of 3mm thick balsa wood, and it needs to be curved to hold its shape. To achieve that, I'm going to use boiling water to soften the wood, and then apply some weight and leave it overnight, so it can get that shape permanently. And now we can glue the fuselage effortlessly. Because it already has the shape, it won't create any tension in the structure. And again, I'm gonna let it dry for a few hours with some weight on top. The result is a very strong but lightweight structure. I still need to glue the former that goes in front and holds the motor, and talking about the motor, let's prepare its mounting. Meanwhile, I'm going to glue the balsa sheets that are going in the middle of the wing. Now I'm going to prepare this plywood where the motor is going to be mounted. Now it's time to start closing the fuselage by gluing the rest of the pieces. And by creating these paper templates, I'm able to cut the pieces of wood to the correct size. It's a great time to glue the horizontal stabilizer in place. And remember that this is a critical aerodynamic surface, so make sure it is aligned. Leading edge. That's what I'm shaping there, because right now it's square, and it shouldn't look like that. It should look more something like this. So combining a little bit of the knife and sandpaper, you must shape the leading edge to something more aerodynamic. Here's what's going to be the ailerons for the bottom wing, and I'm going to start gluing the center part. Next, I'm going to create a push rod for the elevator, using a barbecue skewer and a little bit of wire. For this design, I only need one push rod because we're not going to control the rudder. In this airplane we only have the elevator and the ailerons. here I'm just looking at where the servos should be positioned so they don't interfere with each other. For the aileron servo, I'm going to put it in there because I'm just following what I saw in the magazine. Now I'm going to test it, and if I don't like it, then I will change it. I'm going to use the same barbecue skewers to make the dowels where the rubber bands are going to attach to. And here's the first glance on how it looks like so far. Now it's time to accommodate the wires that are going to control the ailerons. This is the idea that I saw from the magazine, but I don't think it works quite well. So I'm going to try my way, and I think it will be better. In my way, I move the servo a little bit forward, and then there is some space to put some push rods that are going to move those wires. And there it is. It works a lot better. Now let's continue with the elevator and with the covering at the same time, because I'm planning to use the covering as the hinge for the elevator. The white covering is monocoat, and I'm also going to use some blue covering from solar film, but I think the monocoat is easier to work with. In the magazine, the guy was using a heat shrinking tube to join the push rod and the control horn, but it didn't work out for me, so I had to do it a different way. Finally, I'm gonna start covering the wings with solar film, using this beautiful metallic blue. The covering I'm using is a special material designed for model airplanes. It has some kind of glue in one side, and it activates when heat is applied. It also shrinks with the heat, leaving this stretch and beautiful finish. I'm gonna use this metallic blue for the whole airplane, except for the tail surfaces. The covering is a long process that requires a little bit of technique and also some patience. These wings are small and delicate, so I had to be careful not breaking them while covering. And of course, I'm gonna use magnets for the front hatch. Now I'm going to put the micro ailerons in place. And finally, I'm going to cover the rest of the fuselage. The vertical stabilizer has to be glued in place, very well aligned to the longitudinal axis of the fuselage. This is the receiver I'm going to use. It's very small, lightweight, and only has 4 channels, and we only need 3. I'll leave the link in the description below to this receiver and the other components that I'm using. And after a quick balance of the center of gravity of this airplane, I figure out that I will need some lead on the tail because it's too nose heavy. So I'm cutting out small pieces of lead from a big one and just measuring the weight to apply it to the tail. Now let's measure the weight of the whole model, which is around 225 grams including the battery. Now let's take out the battery and let's weigh it again. 176 grams, which is really good. Finally, I'm going to apply some vinyl graphics and we're pretty much done. The last thing I need to do is to set up the radio, but this is a piece of cake because it's only 2 control surfaces and we only have 3 channels, and that's it. It's going to be very basic. If you want to learn how to build a radio control airplane with foam board and learn how to connect and set up your radio and electronics, I'll leave you a link in the description below to my basic online course on how to build and fly a model airplane. And our biplane, it's ready. The Weekend Grand. Well guys, the building process is finally done and this is the result. This is a beautiful, amazing little biplane and look at that. Now we have to go out and fly it, but the video of the flight is going to be for tomorrow. So don't miss the video and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow flying this beautiful machine. Remember that it's very important your support for this channel, so leaving a comment, a like, and sharing this video with others helps a lot for this channel and keeps me making more videos like this. If you really like these kind of videos, I only ask you to subscribe and like this video. You can also visit joyplanes.com where you will find a lot of articles and more information. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the flight.